primary care is an innovative, alternative path to insurance-driven healthcare. Typically, a patient pays their doctor a low monthly membership and, in return, builds a lasting relationship with their doctor and has their doctor available at their fingertips. Welcome to the My DPC Story podcast, where each week you will hear the ever so relatable stories shared by physicians who have chosen to practice medicine in their individual communities through the direct primary care model. I'm your host, Marielle Conception, family physician, DPC owner, and former fee-for-service doctor. I hope you enjoy today's episode and come away feeling inspired about the future of patient care, direct primary care.
I am so excited for our conversation today. I am so excited because Dr. Lawrence-Reid, a good friend and a kick-butt entrepreneur, is going to be talking all about her experience as a physician who was in the system. We are going to ask Dr. Lawrence-Reid to talk about the diaper chair. And yes, I said the diaper chair, and that will be clear as we go on. But Dr. Lawrence-Reid has become a friend after randomly meeting her at the FlexMed Summit. She was a fellow speaker, and what she was talking about was physician side gigs. And for this topic especially, I have been wanting her to come onto the podcast and talk about her entire platform that is built around physician side gigs, because for almost a decade, she has left the system and gone into the side gigs that she's going to touch on in part today and more. So she is my go-to expert when it comes to physician side gigs, and I'm super excited to have her join us today.
Thank you for having me. I kick butt back at you. I call you mother because, man, when I need a dose of passion and anger and motivation to change the system, you are who I go to. So thank you for having me.
I love it. So we are recording in the same time zone. Dr. Lawrence-Reid is down in San Diego, but she has been not only incorporating side gigs, but also traveling all over the world for the past 3 years. The number one question I ask her when we talk is, where are you physically today? So we're going to just zoom in though on that physician expertise. And again, I want to open with the diaper chair story. So definitely pause, go to the bathroom, do what you have to, because you might be peeing your pants after the ridiculousness of the diaper chair story.
Sure. So my story starts off like so many of us. Did what we were supposed to do. Med school residency. I got my first real job. It was a full-time academic clinical job. It was in a pediatric emergency department. And within the first couple of years, I began to think, wow, this is not that great. I am not enjoying this. I'm working overnights and weekends and holidays, and I was making $125,000 a year and told that was my full-time salary, and that was the most I deserved doing what I did. It didn't feel right, but I didn't think I could leave. So one night I'm walking into my shift in the pediatric ER, and there's a small office in the back of the ER, like most ERs for physician charting, 2 desks, 2 chairs, 2 computers, a tiny little closet type space. And I walk in, and the armrest off of one of the chairs, the available chair, was broken off, and there were shards of metal sticking up. And there was a little Post-it note on the computer that said, admin is aware of the chair, working on it. So I thought, okay, someone is over at Office Max spending, I don't know, $80, $90 for a new office chair for us physicians to write our notes, because we all know how important physician charting is. So I do my shift. I write my notes with my arm pinned to my torso so I'm not impaled by the shards of metal sticking up from this broken chair. I finish my shift. I go home. I return the next day or the day after for my next shift, and I walk into the office, and instead of a new office chair, the administration has wrapped diapers around the shards of metal on the physician charting chair. And I stood there, and in that moment, I felt truly my value and my worth in that department. And that's why I started off saying it was overnights, it was weekends, it was holidays, it was a non-negotiable schedule and contract. And that diaper chair, on top of almost 3 years of that kind of work environment, really in that moment crystallized what I would and would not tolerate out of this career. And I'm a general pediatrician. I truly did not know any options. This is the end of 2016. There wasn't as much discussion about side gigs or alternate ways for physicians, non-traditional ways for physicians to practice. There really wasn't that much discussion happening at that point. And I did not know a single doctor doing anything but full-time clinical medicine. But at that moment, I knew I had to do something else, and I submitted my letter of resignation that night.
I love it. And it totally resonates with the audience, especially because we're coming up days away from the National AASP co-sponsored DPC Summit. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of chatter about not only this episode, but also I hope that it gives the audience members some information going into Summit when they're thinking about how am I going to finance my DPC journey. That could be somebody who's planning out of residency. That could be somebody who's open and is wanting a little bit more funding during the year. Fantastic. And I know that you were one of our most requested speakers to come back for our 2026 California DPC Summit, which is going to be next June. And already we have 6 people signed up for our limited tickets. So definitely go to calidpc.com because we have a limited number for that one. But going back into our talk today, you have condensed your, and I say condensed because it's like that's saying it very lightly. You have condensed your almost decade of experience into a course, and you have that course put on doctoringdifferently.com. There will be a link so you can check that out in the show notes, but also the blog accompanying Dr. Lawrence-Reid's podcast. But also, after the California DPC Summit, you had started a summer series, and that was really hitting on the top 5 high yield content that people are asking for, and the most popular pieces of content when people are asking you about side gigs for physicians, including and especially DPC physicians. So
That's
I'm
right.
super excited to get into the top 5. We're not the same as Billboard, but what is our number 5 rolling in at Dr. Lawrence-Reid's top of the list?
Sure. So I'll say if we're going to count down to the most requested, I'll say, well, let me just start with saying that I have modeled doctoring differently and everything that I teach out of my own personal experience. After that diaper chair, I put my letter of resignation in. I had a few months. All I knew was going per diem. And per diem felt, for so many of us, it's like, wait, only nurses go per diem. What do you mean you're going per diem? It felt like the only doctors I knew who could go per diem were maybe mothers of 7 children who had a neurosurgeon husband. Those were the only doctors who could go per diem. But in fact, we all can and probably should. So I've modeled this a whole course and the Doctoring Differently platform off of what I experienced, what I learned, what I tried, what I know to be true and available, these lucrative opportunities available to all doctors. So I'll say that number 5, to answer your question, would probably be starting an aesthetics practice.
Mhm.
So we're going to work back, and I want doctors to know that, listen, each of these things I rolled in one at a time, but there are so many really intentional, tangible ways that you can start from wherever you are. So, of course, the aesthetics and med spa field encompasses so much. But it wasn't the first thing I did. As I said, per diem, locum, some of those clinical things were the first that I did. But I would say when I talk to people who are interested in a new venture, getting into either Botox or fillers or weight loss or hormones or anything in that space and medical directorship, kind of just getting really good mentorship. I think many of us have been perhaps approached by a nurse practitioner, PA, or nurse about this field, and serving and working as a medical director can sound incredibly intimidating. We think about the risk to our license, the liability, and those exist, but they're also very smart and potentially lucrative partnerships that can emerge from such relationships. So I talk about courses that any doctor can take to enter into the aesthetics field. When I was considering it after a few years post diaper chair, I initially thought, well, I'm a pediatrician. I can't be doing Botox or fillers. And it was a family friend. He was a surgeon. He'd opened up a med spa in the Midwest. And he said, you do harder things every day. Don't you suture kids' faces in a peds ER? Aren't you doing LPs, Botox, fillers? You can learn, and then it's a lot simpler and easier than what you're already doing. So that was a great, I think, boost of encouragement for me, at least at the beginning. I took a number of CME accredited classes in Southern California, and I started a concierge med spa in 2018. That's still going today. So you can learn how to start or at least consider starting an aesthetics practice from any specialty.
the other thing that I want to make sure that we mention is that I think it was after I saw you at the last FlexMed Summit, you're like, oh, tomorrow I have an in-home Botox party. And
Yes.
so you literally have been taking your knowledge and applying it where your patients and your clients are asking.
It's true. It's true. I've really enjoyed doing this aesthetics part. I would say the main thing, and I think the most important thing that doing it very much for me, I'd never wanted to make it. I didn't want to own a brick and mortar med spa. I think it can be incredibly intimidating at the beginning to think, oh, I see that giant med spa at the corner down when I'm on my way to work, and I don't know if I could ever do that. And you don't have to. You can just start with taking a course or maybe starting a small practice. But for me, it taught me the value of my time, my energy, and what I can earn. We never are the ones generally. I guess your DPC audience maybe is closer to this now, but in our training, we don't perform a service and then open our palm for a credit card. We never experience that exchange of direct services for money. Obviously, that help happens way above us and beyond us with different people, different hands. And so we never have that quite that understanding of what is my time worth. So if I tell a patient, oh, we're going to do a few things on your face, and 35 minutes later, I say, okay, that'll be $2,000. And they hand over their credit card. It's like, oh, yeah, that is the value of my time and energy. So that was something, at least personally, that I'm grateful that aesthetics taught me.
What is coming in at number 4?
Number 4 would have to be medical writing. And whenever I say medical writing, physicians say, wait, what is that? Why haven't I heard of that? And I say, well, there's a reason, but enough of my conspiracies. Medical writing, who writes everything we read? Okay, someone has to write it. They didn't drop out of the sky on tablets from the heavens. Someone writes the things that we as physicians read, and quite frankly, writes the things that the world reads about health and medicine and wellness and fitness. So from everything from CME, from up to date, Red Book, FDA, we're talking about journals, we're talking about articles. And I'm not just talking about the dance of trying to get something published in an academic journal. We know so many doctors know that that can be a really ineffective use of a lot of time and energy. But I'm talking about medical writing that actually pays you, the physician, for your knowledge, for your expertise. So medical writing is available to all physicians. And my favorite phrase is, are you a physician? Can you write? You're a medical writer. Look, it's already true. And you don't need to have a journalism degree. You don't need to go to a writing workshop to start. Yes, there are always things you can do to improve your writing, but I think we as physicians are so used to so many mantras about what we can and can't do. Oh, I'm not a good writer. Oh, I can't understand business. Oh, I can't. And these are things that were perpetuated and taught and have gotten inside of us and made us feel like we're so stupid about everything that is not clinical medicine, and that is not true. We are all good writers. So medical writing is absolutely something that every physician can start today. You can put it in your LinkedIn bio. You can put it in your email signature. Dr. Naomi Lawrence-Reid, founder of Doctoring Differently, board certified pediatrician, medical writer. Boom. I did not lie. I am a doctor who writes. You are a doctor who writes. Ergo, you are a medical writer.
Love it.
Yes.
And what is coming in at number 3?
Number 3 would have to be probably, I'm going to put per diem and locums work in the same bucket here. And again, I'm going out of order of my own kind of personal career journeys. But going per diem, as I mentioned, was literally all I knew. I only knew clinical medicine. I only knew doctors and pediatricians working clinically. I knew I couldn't stay at the institution where I was. I had $200,000 in educational debt. I just needed to pay my bills. And I figured, listen, I cannot go to another full-time job right now. So I'm going to go per diem, and just understanding that even that step, I'm working in my specialty, I'm working in my community, I'm being paid hourly. I don't have administrative duties and responsibilities to a department. Everyone is so happy to see me because I'm effectively a substitute teacher and helping a potentially understaffed department. There's always a physician who's sick or has an obligation or is on maternity or whatever it is. So to be able to kind of slide in and help out, for me, was such a step in the right direction. From there, after about 9 months of doing per diem work, I took my first locums gig. At that point, so I remembered my residency program directors basically said, never pick up the phone when locums recruiters call, never do locums, never consider it. It is not for real and serious doctors. Don't do that. So at that point, I said, you know what? What else? I'm going to maybe do the opposite of what I was taught to do, because I did what they told me and I wasn't happy there. So I'm going to try this, and had an incredible experience. So over the past 7 years, I've done a number of locums through a locums agency and direct contracts with different facilities that are short term, that are rural or critical access. I have earned so much money, probably 5 times what I could earn here in San Diego. So doing locums, knowing how to negotiate, knowing how to speak to recruiters and understanding that they work for you and not the other way around, that you can control the conversation, that you can dispense them effectively to find the type of job or contract you're looking for, was a game changer. I'll quickly say the number one question I get about locums is, okay, so how do I find a locums agency? How do I find a good one for my specialty? And I always say, until I potentially start my own, which I have not done, until that happens, there is no perfect locums agency, okay? It is not about the agency. It is about you, the physician, knowing how to negotiate and advocate for yourself. These are corporations. These are companies. They have the same end goal, which is making money. But so you have to understand that it is about you, and be clear and articulate about what you need and what you want from a contract. So it's not about the agency. It's about you, the physician. So that's number 3.
That's awesome. And I will say that this is exactly the content around the circumstances where I met you. We were at the FlexMed Summit last year in 2024. And as a DPC doctor talking about DPC as a side gig for specialists to get into the world of DPC,
That's right.
or a specialist to leave a non-primary care specialty and start a DPC, that's where I was really focusing in. But then it was so empowering to hear you talk about a lot of the things that we find in DPC, like word of mouth, who you prefer to build your website, who you prefer to be your lawyer. The same type of thing happens in the physician per diem and locums world, and that
Hmm.
there's definitely ways to do things even without a recruiter. There's ways to do things that are vetted and tried by physicians like you, and it helps you be autonomous but also be intentional about physically where you're going to go. There was a hemonc doctor, I believe she was in Florida, but she, at the end of hearing people like you speak, she was like, oh, so I don't actually have to leave my neighborhood to do locums jobs. This is amazing.
That's
And
right.
there's an entire world of strategy behind making a side gig out of locums and per diem work. And this is where I'm so glad you're mentioning this, because people need to know. And just to let you know, not only is Dr. Lawrence-Reid speaking in her summer series that's coming up in August, we'll put the link to sign up for that in the show notes, but also she has her course year round, her digital course, Doctoring Differently. And she's also going to be talking at the Rise Up Physician Summit that's going to be happening virtually in October. So definitely check out the link in the show notes for that as well. But this is where, yes, you can do per diem and you can do locums and you can do, we're not even on number 2, number 1, but you can do
No.
aesthetics and you can
Yes.
do med writing
Yes.
as a DPC doctor. So
That's right.
let's go
Sure.
to number 2.
Right. Number 2, I would say, is probably expert witness work or physician expert witness work. And I think that we all initially have a little chill goes through us when we think about expert witness work. We think that we'll end up in a courtroom that's full of dark wood, and there's an angry lawyer wagging his finger in our face while we take the stand, and it's that is what we think it is. We also think that it's probably going to require throwing another doctor under the bus, or having to judge or criticize another doctor or another physician's decision making. I'm here to tell you, both of those things are actually relatively rare. I've been doing expert witness work for over 4 years now. I'd say less than 30% of the cases I've worked on have been around physician malpractice. I think that's a common misconception that that is the only intersection between medicine and law is malpractice, when in fact there are so many civil cases happening every day, all the time, that involve injury or illness, but in no way are they criticizing a physician's care. An example I use is I've worked on a case where there were two families living next to each other, one family's dog, but the other family's child. And I, as a pediatrician, was asked to distill a stack of medical records. The child went to the ER, their pediatrician, plastic surgery. And so there were just a number of records about antibiotics, about the types of sutures, about the types of procedures. And the lawyers are just like, we don't know what's happening. We don't know what these words are. And they asked me to distill it, and there was absolutely no focus or blame on the pediatrician's care or any of the physicians who saw that child. By the way, I now charge around $600 to $700 per hour to review these charts and to do this kind of work. So, of course, it is incredibly lucrative. And the other part is, now in this post-pandemic era, I have never actually met a lawyer in person. I have only had Zooms and phone calls, okay, and emails exchanges. So this is effectively a remote physician gig that we can, all of us could do. And quite frankly, I'll say this, and I'm just going to go out there, that I believe every physician who is out more than 3 to 5 years from training can work as a physician expert witness. This is an open book test. You always have access. You'll never be put on the spot surprised. They might ask you, if you're a pediatrician, about lead testing. They may ask you, a family medicine doctor, about a poisoning or toxicology or something like that. You have time to go look things up and come back with your response or your answer. So this is not a kind of pop quiz on the Krebs cycle. You can look things up. And I also believe every physician at some point in our career should actually partake in this work. I think it's important for all of us, even if it turns into a malpractice or you're presented with a malpractice case. I think that physicians of honesty and integrity who believe in science should be working on all sides of all cases, including malpractice. I would want that. You would want that. I think all of your listeners would want that as well. So expert witness work, number 2. In the summer series and in the full Doctoring Differently Academy course, I teach exactly how to start finding these kinds of opportunities as a medical expert witness, because you can feel like a sitting duck, like, well, how do I even start? How do I even find it? Where do I even look? And I'll say, you can start. So I teach exactly how to start for any physician of any specialty. You don't have to necessarily stroll into a lawyer's office or have connections with the high-powered attorneys in the media or the news. There are so many cases happening in every community. As I said, I would say a minority of them are malpractice, but there are a number of cases of personal injury or sadly child abuse in my field as a pediatrician. Not all, there's a variety of opportunities, and there's such a need, such an ongoing continuous need for physicians of all specialties to, I think, enter this work, or at least have a good understanding of how they can. And I'll cover it in the Doctoring Differently Academy and in our summer series starting in August.
Love it. And what is coming in at number 1?
Number 1 is a personal favorite of mine, and that is veteran disability exams. And I know you didn't expect me to say that as a pediatrician, but it turns out, I mean, this one blew my mind. It turns out that the GI Bill, which many people know about, the GI Bill signed in, I believe it was 1944 by FDR, it ensures that our veterans who are separating from the military, retiring from the military, get their education paid for. But another part of it ensures that these veterans, if they were injured or sustained an illness while they were active duty, that they get compensation. They get disability and compensation when they separate or retire from the military for their illness, whether they had an injury that was pre-existing and it got worse, or they sustained a new injury while in service. It turns out that they actually need and require, the federal government requires civilian physicians and practitioners to perform these exams. They cannot be performed by active duty physicians. So those physicians are, are busy treating actively sick and ill service members. So these disability and compensation exams are non-clinical, non-diagnostic, non-treatment. You're not ordering tests. You're not advising a veteran on what he or her, how they can treat their illness or their next testing, or giving advice. You're not doing any of that. You are simply evaluating their claims. You are presented with their entire EMR from service, their records, and you're asked to fill a questionnaire out and do a very focused physical exam that generally is a range of motion testing of various joints. And you return all of that information to the VA. Physicians can earn up to $2,000 a day doing these exams in most cities, in most states in the US. And the best part is, because this is federal work, if you are flexible with your travel, which I teach, we all need to be likely more flexible, at least with how we think about our careers as physicians. But short-term travel is available. And because it's federal work, one active state medical license can translate to any of the 50 states, including Guam and Puerto Rico. So you can do those exams and say maybe go to another state for 3 or 5 days, do a slew of exams and come home. A few years ago, I went up to Washington for 2 weeks over the summer, did veteran disability exams. I don't have a Washington medical license. I only have a California medical license, but because it's federal work, I could do it anyway. I find it so fun. I love talking to veterans. I think it actually makes me a better pediatrician, but I want to remind you again, it is not clinical, it's not diagnostic, it's not treatment. And when I started, I hadn't touched an adult clinically in 10 years. That was when I had graduated from medical school 10 years earlier, and I'd seen only kids since. So look at the scope of practice that I didn't even know I had access to, I was able to do. So number one, I think the one I get the most questions about is veteran disability exams, and any physician of any specialty can do them.
I love this. So there you go, Dr. Naomi Lawrence-Reid's Billboard equivalent of the top 5 that she has for physician side gigs. And just as we do in DPC, we under promise, over deliver. I really would love if you can, even though it's not one of the top 5s,
Sure.
I would love if you can talk about how you empower your fellow physicians out there to think about business and money. Because as you're going through all these the top 5, you still have to deal with business and you still have to deal with
Absolutely.
money. And
You
you
do.
absolutely talk about that.
I do. Thank you. So for all of those fun opportunities that maybe have crossed a physician's mind, I think the thing that causes us to halt is, ooh, but I need health insurance. Like, that sounds fun. Ooh, $600 an hour to be an expert witness, or this, that, or to do veteran disability. But I have a family. Everyone is on, even my parents, my kids, my husband, my spouse, everyone is on my health insurance. So I teach in another part of the Doctoring Differently summer series, week 3, we get into the money and business of doctoring differently. And the first part of that lesson is how to find your own health insurance. I mean, if we can just take a step back, I really hate that we really have no understanding about health insurance. And I'm speaking for myself when I began this journey as well. I had no idea really the components of a health insurance policy, what I needed, what I was looking for, and how to find my own. We talk about it. We teach many options for getting health benefits for a physician, for their family, so that they are able to work in this independent way and potentially leave a full-time clinical employer. I talk about how to think and recalibrate your retirement strategy, or at least the thought of, well, I've got this retirement account. I really don't understand the details. People are throwing around numbers like 403B and 401k, and I don't know. Let me study everything about my accounts, and then maybe when I fully understand it, maybe then I can make a career change. And that also, it was not what I could do. I knew that I had to really just kind of figure it out as I go. And I did. And by the way, I'm now able to contribute so much more and diversify all my investments and retirement accounts, because I'm earning so much more in so many flexible and lucrative ways. So we talk about kind of how to think about potentially leaving a full-time job with its potential retirement perks, but also how to grow and think of your retirement strategy on your own. We also talk about malpractice, and we talk about covering your S-Corp. Of course, malpractice is not covered in so many of our medical education. I once tweeted a few years ago, I had 10 weeks off at the end of medical school. So you just can't tell me that there's no time for a day, a couple of days to teach physicians about malpractice, even physicians who maybe stay fully employed at a large institution for their entire careers. I think it's a very malicious and egregious omission from our medical education, but we talk about it. For some of the things I do, some of them, not all of them, some you do need to get your own malpractice policy. We talk about how to get it. And finally, we talk about starting a physician S-Corp or LLC, which is just a amazing tax mitigation strategy. Let me also just back up saying, I do not have an MBA. I never got one. I don't plan to get one. You do not need an MBA. You don't need a fellowship, another fellowship. You don't need a pile of cash. All of the things that I think we need in order to make a big change in our lives and our careers. That more education is our currency, right? That's what we're taught. Oh, you don't like your job? Well, then you probably should go do a peds cardiology fellowship. I knew that wasn't the right answer for me, but I certainly see how that kind of thinking can creep into so many physicians' minds. So I want to tell you, we teach all of those things in the Doctoring Differently summer series and in the Doctoring Differently Academy, because you absolutely don't need to wait. You don't need an MBA. All you need is the belief that you deserve a happy, healthy, and respected life as a physician.
And this is why Dr. Naomi Lawrence-Reid is my go-to person when it comes to physician sidekicks. I am so grateful for you coming onto the podcast and sharing your expertise, just the little scrape of the surface. So tell us now where people can find you, where they can sign up for the summer series, and where they can go for the academy.
Sure. So everything is at doctoringdifferently.com. There's a banner at the top that says sign up for summer series right now. You can see our summer course syllabus, but in the website, you'll see links for the full academy, which again is a digital recorded course that has over 9 hours of content. Within the academy, we have weekly Q&As every month of the year with the whole community, with me. You bring your successes, you bring your rants, you bring your victories, you bring your learning, and we talk about it every single month. So that's within the academy. But here we're recording mid-July. I'm doing a series right now, a live series in July. It's going so well. These doctors are learning so much as I've pulled this high yield content, the top 5. Oh, I love the term. I love that billboard. I'm feeling very thank you, Diva. I should be floating in the sky on tour. Thank you so much. Anyway, I love that billboard reference. And that billboard is what we're doing in August. So if anything that I've talked about or mentioned has sparked an interest or a thought, hopefully a daydream, hopefully it's lit a match for you that you're like, oh, I have thought about that. And I don't know, this full-time physician, I don't know if I can do this thing forever, this full-time clinical. Please, this is your opportunity. I have the time in August to do it. In the summer, I don't know that I'll be able to do it the rest of the year. So I want to teach this live to get your questions live, but we go sequentially each Tuesday night in August. We will go down the list of the top 5, but also the money and business of doctoring differently and how to find, how to start, how to secure your future, how to protect your assets as you go. And oh, by the way, we teach resignation too, how to write a resignation letter. The way I had to Google it after my diaper chair, we should know how to write resignation letters. So I'll show you mine. It's not great, but we learn from it and we write better resignation letters, and we learn how to resign without burning bridges, because that's ultimately what we want to do. We can maintain good relationships with our community, but we also deserve to explore new opportunities if that's what we want to do.
So empowering. Again, go to doctoringdifferently.com to sign up and connect with Dr. Lawrence-Reid after this podcast.
And I will add one more thing here. Everything that I've talked about, my billboard list of medical writing and expert witness and locums and per diem and veteran disability and medical writing, all of these things, they can be bridges into a thriving DPC practice. They can be the thing that kind of you start to do as you're building your cash flow, as you're getting used to working as an independent physician away from a full-time W-2 employer. These are steps that you can slowly and intentionally take, so it doesn't necessarily feel like a huge leap from a full-time employed job into your own thriving DPC practice. This can be a bridge. This can be constant, consistent cash flow, doing per diem, doing expert witness, doing a locums gig or something like that, or all of these things can be done on your way to a DPC practice. While you're doing it, quite frankly, I think every physician should be exploring some of these opportunities at some point in their career. By the way, you can pick them up and you can put them down. Nothing has to be happening all the time, go, go, go. I think as your interests change, as your personal needs change, as your needs with your family change, we can do new things and we can decide to put some things on hold and pick up something else. So just know that these are entirely flexible. They change with you. I think we're now in a time in history where these jobs need to fit into our lives and not the other way around. So just know you can do these as you start your practice, while you're in your practice. And let's be clear, these can all be done at the end, maybe near retirement. There's so many options for this remote, flexible, but intellectually fun and stimulating work for all doctors.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
You're so welcome. And I'll just say, sign up for the mailing list, even if you're not ready to join the course or to join the summer series. If you go to the website, a pop-up will come and you can get a full list of my guide to a number of the careers that I teach about, but that'll help you sign up for the list and just stay informed about future offerings, courses, free webinars over at Doctoring Differently. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of My DPC Story. If you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps others find the show. Have a question about direct primary care? Leave me a voicemail. You might hear it answered in a future episode. Follow us on socials at the handle @MyDPCStory and join DPC Didactics, our monthly deep dive into your questions and challenges. Links are at mydpcstory.com. For exclusive content you won't hear anywhere else, join our Patreon. Find the link in the show notes or search for My DPC Story on patreon.com. For DPC News on the Daily, check out dpcnews.com. Until next week, this is Marielle Conception.